90,000 hours. That's how much time the average person will spend at work during their lifetime. If you're a recent college graduate, you probably can't even begin to imagine working in the same career for the rest of your life, let alone knowing that that'll be 90,000 hours. Never fear, most people don't work in the same field or occupation for the rest of their lives. My guest today is Carolyn Dennis Johnson, owner of Carolyn Dennis Johnson Consulting. Carolyn is a human resources consultant specializing in talent acquisition. Carolyn has had several very different careers. Welcome to the Young Professionals Career Catalyst, Carolyn.
Oh, so happy to be here.
Great to have you here.
My pleasure.
So before we talk about what you're doing these days, let's talk about your childhood. What did you think about doing when you were a kid?
In high school, I took French, and actually starting in 8th grade. And so I thought, oh, man, it would be cool to do something, with the languages. I also loved biology from 7th grade on. And so, I considered, something in that field. Although when I learned maybe to get anything really good in that field that you might need to get a PhD, I wasn't so sure that was the direction I wanted to go.
Okay. I don't blame you there. That's a long time to be in school.
For sure.
So you've had several different careers. What did you start out doing, and what other careers have you had?
Well, I started out as a dental hygienist. I ended up kind of combining my interest in science as well as health, and went to Fairleigh Dickinson University and got an associate degree in dental hygiene. And I practiced dental hygiene for a number of years. Took some time off, did some more office kind of work, and then ultimately went back to it for another several years, but left the profession back in 1995 when I started as a customer service rep for Cigna Group Insurance. At that point in time, I had started back on earning a bachelor's degree and wanted to make a career change, more related to what I was studying. And ultimately, I got a management degree with an HR management concentration from what was then Allentown College of St. Francis de Sales, but now known as DeSales University.
Right. Okay. And then at some point, you decided to pursue your master's degree. Well, your bachelor's degree. How old were you when you decided to get the bachelor's degree?
I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
And I met with a number of individuals kind of for information interviews. And I thought, oh, man, it's going to probably go in part-time. It'll take me 6 or 7 years to get the bachelor's degree. And they said, well, in 6 or 7 years, you'll be that many years older. You might as well be that age and have your degree.
True.
So I had started the process at the community college in 93. In 95 is when I transferred to DeSales, and finished in 99 doing it part-time. And after I completed my degree, I actually did get a promotion at Cigna Group Insurance and became a trainer. So I was training customer service reps, and then did that for a little bit and got laid off from there in 2002, and ended up at B. Braun Medical in their HR department in the recruiting function, initially as a temporary employee for a 3-month assignment, and ended up getting hired on full time and completed my active working life in the professional world in 2021. But while I was there, I did go back and get my master's degree, MBA from DeSales with the HR management concentration. So I spent 19 years total with B. Braun in the recruiting or talent, now known as the talent acquisition function. Specialist, and eventually being promoted to senior talent acquisition specialist at B. Braun.
Okay. And then you retired a couple years ago, but you are quite busy professionally. Tell us about your current ventures.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple of irons in the fire, actually. In 2018, I started with Monate, which is a network marketing company with naturally based hair care, skincare, and wellness products. I did it primarily for a self-development opportunity as much as for the additional income that might provide, and really was exposed heavily to the area of personal and professional development. Now, uh, as an HR professional, I had gotten and earned my professional and human resources certification. So professional development was very much a part of what I did, while I was working. But, the whole area of personal development was an additional focus, through doing my network marketing business. And then, most recently, I announced a couple of months ago that I'm starting my own business, helping small business owners learn how to interview and hire employees more effectively. Sometimes when that opportunity faces itself, because you realize perhaps you're a solopreneur as a business owner, and they don't really know where to start.
Right.
Maybe they've tried hiring and it hasn't worked out. And so I'm here to help those small business owners learn the process of interviewing and hiring, and doing it effectively so that they can do it for themselves. So working with, training programs, that I'm putting together, as well as, consultation services, so that's probably the biggest, newest adventure in the professional world, but also continuing with my whole health journey and wanting to improve my health as I age. I've recently partnered with another network marketing company called LifeWave that does photo sensitivity patches that can help your body actually rejuvenate and change your genes and your master cells to help maybe age a little bit in reverse and address those concerns that people might have as they age. So
I love the sounds of that.
yeah, for sure. As a person in in my 60s, late 60s, actually, all about aging gracefully.
Yes.
From the outside with the good, clean products, and from the inside, with the technology available through LifeWave.
That's amazing. So over the course of your lifetime, did you ever imagine being a business owner?
Actually, from the time I was a young adult, I always thought that, it would be really cool to be able to work from home, to have that flexibility. I raised two children on my own from the time they were 1.5 and 4. I have two sons, and to have that flexibility to be more available. Now, while I was raising my kids, actually, I didn't really have that opportunity.
Right.
But with what I'm doing now, I just really decided at this age and stage of life, I don't want to be in the corporate world anymore. I want the freedom to work on my terms, and also I just feel like I have people and business owners in the world that I would like to serve with my new business, my consulting business, and so this is time to do that kind of thing. I've always kind of been a teacher at heart, even when I was a dental hygienist. The part of the job that I loved the most was educating my patients on good oral health practices.
Okay.
And while I was at Cigna Group Insurance, I ended up being a trainer toward the last 2 years. I was there, and I continued to do different things in the way of training, even with my time with B. Braun Medical, because I was training our hiring managers. That was part of my job, training our hiring managers on how to interview effectively.
Yeah. And it's so important that people know how to do that proper interviewing techniques, because
Sure.
there is so much legality involved in, the types of questions you can ask and the types of questions you shouldn't be asking. So,
For sure.
and, the typical small business owner probably doesn't know those things. So it's great that, you're offering that type of service.
Right. Yeah. The main thing is to ask questions with the idea of getting examples of things that the candidate has actually done.
Right.
Theoretically, what they would do, but we call it behavioral
Mhm.
interviewing. And
Right.
so that's what I, teach in my programs with small business owners. How to
Great.
do that effectively and consistently and make good hiring decisions that are legally compliant.
Right. So, for our recent graduates, can you explain the hiring process? What does it typically look like from start to finish?
Mhm.
I don't really think they understand or necessarily know how complicated it is.
Sure, sure. And, in most companies these days will have some sort of applicant management system or applicant
Mhm.
tracking system, it's also called. And you'll need to apply online.
Mhm.
You'll want to have a resume, obviously. And it's good to customize your resume a bit for each position that you're applying to because uh, they'll be looking for keywords, and a good tool is to look at the job description that's posted and make sure that your resume contains the types of verbiage in it that would kind of match up with things in the job description.
Right.
So, making those little tweaks to your resume instead of just blindly submitting the exact same resume to every single job, uh, doesn't work for you. It
Right.
really is helpful to customize it to each position.
Mhm.
Once the resumes are received, someone such as myself, in most cases, someone in the talent acquisition group will be reviewing the resumes, choosing those that seem to be the best fit for the opportunity, and then sharing those resumes with the managers that are making the hires.
Mhm.
And so there's a whole review process, the discussion. Typically, the managers will then determine who they'd like to meet with. From there, at that point you would reach out, typically from someone from talent acquisition, perhaps to do an initial phone screening,
Right.
to continue to vet you as a candidate for that position, and then if that works out, then from there you would be invited, typically on site, or it might be via Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some sort of video interview. During the pandemic, we did everything via video.
Right.
It was a big adjustment for us as talent acquisition team members and hiring managers to make that switch. But typically, ultimately, you'll be invited on site for an interview, unless it's a remote only position, and then perhaps
Mhm.
they may do the entire interview process via some sort of streaming or video conferencing capability.
Mhm.
So it can vary, and you can expect to be interviewed by more than one person. Right?
Right.
It's not uncommon. You'll have a human resource interview of some sort. Different companies do it differently. For me, it was always the talent acquisition specialist that did the HR interviews, but in some companies it might be a HR generalist that might have a dual function. And then you'll also interview with that hiring manager.
Mhm.
You could also interview with that manager's, manager, or you could interview with peers,
Right.
or other, maybe if it was, say, for an engineering position, just for an example, you might interview with, several other of the engineers, and it could be a panel interview, or it could be a couple of one-on-one interviews, in
Right.
addition to interviewing with the hiring manager. And then usually when the interview process is complete, uh, you know, you'll then hear back. A good follow-up question to ask at the end of your interview is always, what is your, time frame for hiring, or what should I expect going forward? Because sometimes too, to narrow the pool, they might bring you back for a second round of interviews to, you and maybe another finalist candidate to make
Right.
a final selection. So it can be drawn out. And also, depending on schedules and so forth, it's not uncommon for the whole process to take several weeks.
Mhm.
So, don't expect to interview one time necessarily and, get a job offer the next day.
Right.
It doesn't usually happen that
That would be nice.
yeah, it would be very nice, but that's not always the case.
Right. And it seems that the larger the company, the longer the process takes.
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
yeah, you can't always expect to have an answer in a week or two, because trying to
exactly.
coordinate people's schedules and all of that stuff, that
Mhm.
can be cumbersome.
Can be. It can certainly be. Mhm.
Okay. Um, so you've interviewed many people. What are some behaviors or actions that result in an automatic no for a candidate?
Oh my. I would first of all, I mean, first impressions are very important. And
Yes.
so you want to make sure, that you are well groomed, that you're dressed appropriately. It's not a bad idea. You may have a conversation with, the talent acquisition specialist, or it could be, an admin person that might reach out to schedule the interview, find out a little bit about what the dress code is, a
Right.
little bit about the company culture, perhaps. Look at the company's website. You might be able to get a feel from what's on their website in terms of what the culture might be. So you just want to make a good impression. Um, and, automatic no's, could be, something as simple as rude behavior to the receptionist
Right.
when come into the building.
Absolutely.
uh, you know, uh, Failure to make eye contact when you're talking with individuals. Because typically, if you've been invited into the interview, it appears, at least from your resume and maybe the phone screen, that you've got the basic skills.
Right.
So really, it is how you comport yourself in the interview process. That could be a make or break situation.
Right.
Also, come prepared with some examples in your mind of accomplishments you've achieved, projects that you've worked on. And if you're a new grad, it's fine to, refer back to, your senior project or some
Right.
other project that you worked on, while you were in college or university. That's almost expected. And even if you're early in your career, if you don't have a lot of experience, you know, try to just keep in mind things that you've actually done. And you can do a little research on behavioral interview questions and just be aware of that kind of format, because most companies, if they're on the ball and kind of up to date with accepted interview practices, those are the kinds of questions they're going to be asking you. They're going to be asking you specific things that you've actually done. So they're
Right.
going to be looking for what the situation was, or what the task you were assigned to do, the action that you took, and then the result that you achieved. Um,
Right.
so if you can kind of keep examples in mind, it's
Mhm.
helpful for you to be able to kind of be able to answer questions in a timely manner. And if you need a moment to think, it's okay to ask.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. It's even okay to go back, and if you feel like you didn't answer it well, you can go back at some point and say, "Can we revisit that question about X,
yeah,
Y, Z?"
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
sometimes, although you're supposed to be paying attention and answering each question individually, your little mind is still going like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I didn't answer that quite right. I need to
Hmm.
I need to revisit that." So,
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. You do definitely have to listen carefully to the question and make sure that you're
yes.
answering the question that was asked.
Right. So how harmful is something like a poor handshake, would you say?
It probably is not a deal breaker, but it's part of that first impression.
Right.
You want a nice, firm, kind of medium grip type
Right.
handshake. You don't want the dead fish, as we joke sometimes, but you also don't want to squeeze the other person's hands, so hard
Mhm.
that it's causing them discomfort. So you need to find that happy medium.
Right. Absolutely. I call that the bone crusher.
Yes, yes. Yeah, particularly, if you're a guy with big hands and you're meeting with a woman who has small hands like I do,
Right.
you know, that bone crusher could be not take as much pressure even as you think, maybe.
Right, that's true.
Mhm.
So, what are some things that you've enjoyed the most about your careers, your time spent in HR and talent
Mhm.
acquisition?
I think one of my favorite things actually was opportunities I had to work with students. I was very well networked, with colleges here in the Lehigh Valley, and had opportunities to do mock interviews and
Mhm.
provide feedback. I did that a couple of different places, at Lafayette and Moravian.
Mhm.
Braun also actually had an education partnership with Catasauqua High School.
Oh,
So I
okay.
had that opportunity to do that, with high school seniors as
Mhm.
well, and we brought freshmen in for tours of the facility. So I got to talk with them. We used to show a video, and then we would talk about the kind of career opportunities at B.
Mhm.
Braun, and have conversations about what kind of skill sets would be important. What kind of education do you think you would need for this job or that job? Or what kinds of things are important regardless of what job? Things like, coming to work on time, showing
Right.
up every day, doing the work that was assigned. Some basic things that go along with whatever job you might be doing. So,
Right,
but
exactly.
again, the education piece has always been one of my favorite pieces. We used to do programs for transitioning military on, you know, how to interview well,
Mhm.
and how to write your resume, and how to
Mhm.
work a job fair, different things like that. I mean, so
Right,
that was
yeah,
probably my favorite aspect
right,
of the job.
right, that's what I always enjoyed too, sharing that knowledge and
Hmm.
educating,
Yeah.
potential future employees. They need to hear some of that stuff
Yeah.
because when you think about it, they probably don't learn most of that stuff in college or even in high
Hmm.
school. So
Yeah.
the sooner we can start educating them, the more they can have an understanding.
Hmm. Yeah. And gosh, I think maybe I forget which college it was now, but I actually did go, on site to one of the colleges, a
Mhm,
couple of the colleges actually, and do, interview, um, seminars, and also resume writing
mhm,
seminars. I did one at DeSales after I graduated from their MBA program, and
mhm.
did it for their adult education students. And I think it was Cedar Crest College, maybe, or one of those. They
Right.
start to run together after a while.
Right, yes, they do. And we have so many colleges and
Mhm.
universities here in the
Yes.
Lehigh Valley.
Hmm. Yeah, and I loved that.
Mm. So what's one piece of career advice would you give today's young professional or recent college graduate to help them launch a successful, fulfilling career?
I would say be open, because sometimes what you majored in and the original job that you had in mind,
It's
might be a little different than what you end up actually doing, or there might be ways to kind of have a little adventure. There's companies or organizations like Engineers Without Borders or whatever, where you could do some overseas type thing. Back in my early days as a dental hygienist, I actually spent 3 years in a church affiliated mission in southeastern Kentucky and Appalachia,
Oh,
um,
wow.
and I worked there as a dental hygienist, and had some opportunities to do some what we called expanded functions. And
Mhm.
and and I was actually placing fillings, like the dentist would drill out the tooth, but I learned how to actually place the fillings. And I
Oh,
also
wow.
worked alongside a couple of days a week with an orthodontist that came into our facility from Lexington, Kentucky. So you can have some really unique experiences, experience other cultures, live in other places. So I would say,
True.
you know, for one thing is look for opportunities to do some different things, and
Mhm.
just enrich your life and take advantage of those times of your life, maybe before you get married and settle down and get into the whole family thing,
Right.
um, that to take some opportunities to do some adventures, and to maybe work in different places. And the other thing is, just don't stay narrowly tied to, well, I must have one particular job in one particular industry. You may end up doing something that's not related. Certain jobs don't necessarily require you to have a specific degree. They may require you that you have a degree.
Right.
but you might end up doing something, totally different. I did some side routes,
Mhm.
started in dental hygiene, did some other things, learned how to do spreadsheets and stuff, and worked in an office for a while because I was living in a state where I didn't have my dental hygiene license. And actually, frankly, I wanted a break from dental hygiene practice. And so, I did that for a while, and it was
Mhm.
very helpful because later on in my career, when I was with Cigna Group Insurance, we kept some spreadsheets, and I needed to know how to do spreadsheets and
True.
create formulas and do all that stuff, and the same at B Braun. So those are like having those Microsoft Office skills, kind of can serve you well, regardless of
Right,
what
right.
job you're actually in, because there's some of those skills are needed across the board in different jobs. And
Yes.
so,
That's all of those transferable skills, and those
mhm, for sure.
really essential.
Hmm.
Communication and
Hmm.
listening and teamwork and professionalism, all that
Excellent.
stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
so critical, and every experience you have, even if you're volunteering or you're
Hmm.
working a part-time job, you don't realize it, but you're learning and developing skills. So being
Hmm.
open to new opportunities is a really great way to develop a fulfilling career, something that will um, make you happy and fulfilled. So it's
Absolutely.
right. You're absolutely right. Don't be so narrow-minded that you're like, okay, I went to school to be an accountant, so I have to always be an accountant.
Right.
Many of us are not doing what we went to school for. So
Yes. Yeah. And in my case, I ended up in things that were at least related to what I studied. But I
right,
did some other things in between, some of those jobs that weren't exactly, within my major. I mean, when I started as a customer service rep with Cigna Group Insurance, I had my dental hygienist degree, license and degree. I eventually let the license go, but I was only just in process for earning my bachelor's
right.
degree. But I had enough experience in terms of, interacting with patients and, in the dental office, that was enough of a customer service background to
Right.
satisfy what Cigna was looking for at that time for a customer service rep.
Perfect
So I was able
example
to
of
make
yeah,
that transition into that field. They ended up helping me continue my education because I had grants and stuff that covered. I was in the community college program, taking some courses to kind of lead to the degree. Um, and then, when I was ready to transfer to the 4-year university, they had tuition reimbursement, and
I'm sure that was helpful.
very helpful to pay for that because I was a single mother with I guess, elementary age kids at that
Mhm.
stage of my career. And, it was very helpful to have that financial assistance to
Sure.
complete my education. And later on, when I went back for my master's degree, B. Braun also had tuition reimbursement that covered a good portion of
Mhm.
my MBA.
Right, right. That's what we tell our daughter. She wants to get her master's degree. When she's done with her bachelor's, we're like, find an employer that will help you pay for it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to be there a certain length of time first before you're eligible for it. And,
Right.
and some employers may require you to stay a certain length of time after they help you finish paying for your degree. Um, but I think that's a small price to pay for
Right.
that benefit.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great investment in your future.
For sure. For sure.
So this has been great. How can our audience best get in touch with you, Carolyn?
I would say right now, probably the best way to reach out is through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
So,
right.
my profile is listed as Carolyn Johnson, but actually the URL for my thing is Carolyn Dennis Johnson. That helps you find if you put that in, that helps you find the right Carolyn Johnson, because with a last name like Johnson,
Right.
there's just a lot of them out there. So
Sure.
if you do put in Carolyn Dennis Johnson on your search in LinkedIn, you'll find me.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today, Carolyn.
My pleasure.
To my audience, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to watch, like, and comment on the earlier episodes of the Young Professionals Career Catalyst on my YouTube channel. And tune in for the next episode of the Young Professionals Career Catalyst on Tuesday, June 25th at 8:30 a.m.